It is Paul, just coming back from YCS Houston 2025, and I decided I would give a deck profile of Voiceless Voice, which is the deck that I was playing at the event. A couple of disclaimers, I don't actually really do deck profiles very often. I kind of don't see much of a point in them because I feel like you can search for deck lists for this deck and mini decks anywhere you want online, so who's going to sit here for like 10 minutes and listen to this? And also the second thing I should mention is that I actually didn't play the main event. I just played in a bunch of side events, Winnamats, Regionals, Attack of the Giant card. I also played in Master Duel with this deck just in Master Duel. So yeah, there's not really any accolades to my name with this, but I do enjoy using the deck. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a really good control deck that pairs up not all that well into the current metagame, but it can like hold its own. It's pretty cool. And I like the theme and stuff. I've been trying to max out the rarities. Enough people have asked me to do a deck profile of this for a while now, so I just figure whatever. I'll deliver. I'll try to include interesting tidbits here and there, but this is really fairly vanilla Voiceless Voice, give or take like one or two neat cards I like. So yeah, let's get going. First of all, we've got Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. So I got her an ultimate rare, really like it, although QCR is also pretty cool. Anyway, she's the sort of centerpiece of the deck. When you summon her, she places one of your spells and traps face up onto the field from your deck. That can't be ashed because it's just placing it face up on the field. Don't you love modern Yu-Gi-Oh card designs? And also, she can fulfill the entire tribute criteria for a light ritual monster that's a warrior or dragon. And more importantly, whenever you summon that warrior or dragon ritual monster, she can come back from the graveyard, and you're going to obviously want her to be doing that over the course of the duel because she gives Skull Guardian his effects, and she will just slowly be like placing more of your Voiceless Voice spells and traps face up on the field. So yeah, she just puts in a lot of work. You want to protect her, keep her around. She's very vulnerable to things like Bestials and Called by the Grave. So yeah, I was gonna start to give some tidbit of how to protect her, but there's not really much you can do. So yeah, that's that. The secondary starter that's like a little bit more high risk, high return is Diviner of the Herald, which is kind of a staple of a lot of different ritual decks. So when it's normal or special summoned, you can send a fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard and increase its card's level by that monster's level. Typically in a lot of these decks, that's where you'd be sending something like Herald of the Arclight, and you can do that in this deck too. But more commonly, what you're going to do is send Trias Hierarchia because it'll increase this thing's level really high. But more importantly, you can then use Trias Hierarchia to tribute off Diviner of the Herald, and Trias will summon back, which is fine, but Diviner of the Herald will activate and summon Lo straight from the deck, and then Lo will get Barrier or whatever other face-up Voiceless Voice card you need. And then you're kind of off to the races. So you technically get more out of Diviner of the Herald, but she just suffers from not actually being Lo. So she can't like naturally fill the entire tribute of like a light monster. They're both susceptible to a lot of the same hand traps like Valor and Imperm and stuff, but this cannot be hit with Ash Blossom and like Dominus Purge and stuff like that. So that is at least worth thinking about. Of course, they'll probably just ash the barrier that you use, that you get with Lo, but just kind of something to keep in mind. So yeah, cool. And both of these, when they do get negated, can like go into Salamangreat, Owl Mirage and stuff from your extra deck, but we'll talk about that more when we get there. Oh, one last quick thing. Trias Hierarchia, if you, for some reason, just have to like tribute this from your hand, this can be pretty nice while it's in the grave because you can tribute fairy monsters to summon it out. And if you tribute 2 fairy monsters, you get to pop a card as it resolves that doesn't target. And even just if you tribute just like the one, it can be used to help these dodge Imperm or Valor. So that's just a cool little interaction to keep in mind. Next is Saphira, the Dragon Queen. So this is her in her kind of more human goddess form. It's also sort of a starter card. You discard it, you send a ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard, and then you can add a light ritual monster that's a warrior or a dragon from your deck to your hand. So also can get it from the graveyard. So yeah, you'll be sending Prayers of the Voiceless Voice from your deck, and then typically adding Skull Guardian to your hand, although you can also add other cards. And like I said, it can get it from the grave, so it's a sort of like recycling thing as well. And then this gets to function effectively as a ritual spell. You can banish it from your grave to conduct a ritual summon. It's even better than Prayers because it does not force you to use light monsters like this card does, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And yeah, she's kind of the heart and soul of these things. She's not a 1-card starter because you will still need something to tribute for that monster, but she is still just quite strong. And also susceptible to Bestials, also susceptible to Call by the Grave. You really don't want that to happen. But one good thing about that is that at least if you're going first, you shouldn't have any monsters on the field when you use Saphira, so that way they can't use Bestials against her preemptively, but like still it's a little bit tough. So yeah, anyways, yeah, she's a great card, a good time. Next, let's get into the ritual monster, starting with Skull Guardian. He is I feel like I'm gonna say heart and soul of this deck a lot, but he's kind of the one of the two of the pair. If you've got low on your field or in your graveyard, he will gain 2050 attack, putting him at 4100, which is bigger than almost any conventional thing in this game. But while low's in the field specifically, that gives him an Omni Negate. He will be able to negate any card or effect and destroy it, which is really cool. I think it would have been great if that was just a once per turn, and so if you had 2 Skull Guardian, they could both negate, but Konami was not that kind to us. Anyway though, when it gets ritual summoned, and only ritual summoned, not special summoned, because this will get special summoned sometimes, but when it gets ritual summoned, you can add any voiceless voice monster, or ritual monster in general, that's a dragon or warrior, from your deck to your hand. So sometimes what you'll do is if you don't actually have low, you can like still ritual summon Skull Guardian, perhaps with Saphira or something, and then just use its effect to search low from your deck to your hand, and then summon her, and then everything's kind of good, and the Omni Negate's on, just place in barrier, and then they start to get more protections. It's a whole fun time. Some other ritual monsters though are Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended. This is an older card, but it's actually aged pretty well. So while it's in the field, if your opponent would special summon a monster, you can return this card from the field to the hand as a cost, which is cool. And it will negate that special summon and banish that monster or monsters. So it's good for those inherent non-chain starting summons like Xyz and Synchros, Link monsters, even Pendulum monsters. You'll get to banish all of them, which is just brutal. And it also can negate like Diabellstar, for instance, and that sort of thing. So yeah, this can be really nasty since like it doesn't have a hard once per turn in its effect. So if you ever happen to like summon this thing twice in a turn, and there's a lot of ways of doing that, then you can negate 2 things. And in a format full of Ryzeal and stuff where like they have to commit 2 cards to every extra deck summon, negating and banishing that stuff, pretty rude. Especially with, I guess, Ryzeal Detonator going to 1 now. If you can negate that first one, you're kind of in a good spot. In the hand, it can also discard itself to negate an effect that targets a monster you control. So that can actually protect your Skull Guardian or your Low or something similar from a card like Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure or other related things. I've actually had people watch me search this card to hand and then do the ritual summon and they imperm him and then I negate it and it's a fun time. And you can even like use his effect, negate a summon, and then he's back in your hand and you can like negate an imperm or something later in that same turn. It can be really crazy. This is a really good card. And the last ritual is one that you probably shouldn't really be running, but I'm just running it. Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon. This thing, you can place it in the scale, and at the end phase, you can bounce it back to your hand, and you'll also be able to get a ritual spell from your deck or your graveyard to your hand. So it's cool. You don't oftentimes want to get the one from your graveyard to your hand because this is sort of an insurance policy spell, like that I'll get into in a bit. But getting it from your deck to your hand is pretty cool, though you wouldn't be able to really use it that turn, so it's just for next turn, or for shuffling back in with your trap card, Radiance of the Voiceless Voice, that I'll also be getting into in a bit. But in the rare case that you do summon this card, because it can be searched with Skull Guardian, by the way. But in the rare case that you summon this card, it can negate a spell card, and it places itself into the Pendulum Zone when it does that, and then also it will summon out another Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. There's a couple of different options, so that's fun. If you actually have these two together, then it's like, Omni Negate, Spell Negate. This can be really great for dealing with just like those good starter spells, those like bonfire type cards, that sort of thing. But note that it does not negate and destroy, so it's not really of much use against most field spells and continuous spells and those sorts of things. So yeah, that's your ritual lineup. These are essential. This is quite optional. That's my little bit of flair to this deck. It's only really a little. So Ravis, you summon him by shuffling 2 spells from your hand or graveyard into the deck, including a ritual spell. So one of them basically has to be Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. If you have it in your hand, you can use it for that. If it's in the grave, you might want to keep it in the grave, but sometimes you're desperate. Anyway though, when your opponent activates anything, he can bounce himself to the hand, which feels kind of similar to his dragon form. Bounce himself to the hand, and he will summon out any of your ritual monsters. He can't get Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph, so he can really only get these 2. If I already have Skull Guardian, then obviously I'm using him to get Saravis out, and these 2 make a really nice, nasty pair. Saravis can like negate something else, and he's back in the hand, and it's like a whole fun time. Or you could get Skull Guardian, and then like no matter which one you get, if Low is in your graveyard, she will also trigger and summon herself back, and then everything kind of comes back together. So yeah, Old Man Saravis is a good card, but you only want to have one of it because it's searchable and it's a brick otherwise. Next, Dogmatika Maximus, I have the whole little Dogmatika engine in here with triple Nadir's Servant. I guess I'll just show those now. This engine's cool because it can get you a lot of sort of just loose advantage. You can use Nadir's Servant, send a card like Garura, get a draw, grab Dogmatika Maximus. It sucks because like it's very susceptible to draw and Lockbird, and that happened to me a couple times. But you know, that's draw, it kind of just exists. Anyway, though, Maximus is great because outside of the advantage that you generate with Nadir's Servant, it can still be ritual, just like material, I guess, a tribute for a ritual summon. It can send Herald of Arclight and other cards from your extract to the graveyard to net you a bit more advantage. And the thing that you got to be careful of with this card, though, is that in many cases, people will send Fiendsmith's Desiree and another Light Fiend from their extra deck to the grave, and then use Fiendsmith's Desiree as effect to shuffle that other Light Fiend back in, and then send a card from your field to the grave, typically him. At that point, it's not that bad because he kind of would have already fulfilled his uses, but it makes it a little bit tougher in some situations, so just something to keep in mind. Anywho, okay, last monster, or last, like, I guess these are just all hand traps. Bestial Magnamit. This one's cool. You know, it's good disruption these days, and it can also search Saphira because she's a dragon, as well as Ceravis and the Odd-Eyes Pendulum Graph dragon that I'm running. We have Ash Blossoms. We have a random effect failure. I don't really know why I put this in. I just was grabbing whatever hand traps I had. I don't have any Molcharmy cards. Can't afford them. Not going to buy them. I think they're actually kind of overrated. I don't think that they're the best cards ever. I would rather just be able to stop my opponent's plays than hope to draw a couple cards. Anywho, onto the spells. Barrier the Voiceless Voice. This is really the lifeblood of this deck. I've always said that if this deck can ever, anytime your opponent resolves like a barrier search twice, you're probably in trouble. So it's a continuous spell. While you control Low and Skull Guardian, I guess I should just probably have them here for reference. Yeah, while you've got Low and any light ritual monster, but I guess it's ideally going to be Skull Guardian, then your opponent can only target ritual monsters for attacks, which makes it very difficult to just deal with your field because they have to attack Skull Guardian, they can't attack her. And also they cannot target light monsters with card effects, which is absolutely brutal. It protects you from so many cards. People will accidentally use something or just realize they can't target, and it's, they're kind of in a bind at that point. So they have to get rid of barrier first, and that can be the protection that you oftentimes need. Anyway, though, once per turn, you get to grab a Voiceless Voice card, any Voiceless Voice card, or a Skull Guardian ritual monster from your deck to your hand. And that's great. Now, the problem with this card is just that, people kind of see it coming. As soon as this gets activated, someone's just going to use some quick effect to pop it. There's a billion ways, Detonator, and just so many decks have so many ways to just pop this card in a chain sequence, and you never really get to use its effect. So that sort of sucks. But sometimes you can kind of bait it and use Blessing afterwards. You just are kind of lucky and have Blessing in your hand. So then you can activate Blessing and then get back Barrier and then use Barrier, and it still kind of works. But yeah, while this is in the field, it is very annoying. It makes this deck pretty tough to deal with. And the latent advantage turn over turn really adds up. Speaking of Blessing, so this is Blessing. It can target a Voiceless Voice card that's banished in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. So that's how you kind of get to recycle stuff. You can get back your ritual guy, like Skull Guardian, get back Low, you can get back Saphira, just all kinds of things. One small note, though, is that it can't actually get back Ceravis, which is a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, it's not a Voiceless Voice card, so. More importantly, or maybe more or less importantly, I don't know, whenever a non-ritual monster is normally special summoned, that's you or your opponent summons one, you can just immediately conduct a ritual summon. This can be great in your opponent's turn to actually summon back the Ceravis that you might have in your hand after it has negated something, so that it can just get summoned back and then negate something else. And the ritual monster that you summon with Blessing can't be destroyed by battle. It's a big deal because it means if you do get a ritual monster and you've already got Barrier in the field, then your opponent is going to have to attack your ritual monster, because you've got, this is also assuming you have Low, obviously. Your opponent will have to only be able to attack ritual monsters, and so typically they might try to attack Ceravis, but it will be indestructible by battle. You could even get a Skull Guardian that's indestructible by battle. So yeah, just some noteworthy things about that card. Blessing can be really annoying and kind of sneak some wins if your opponent is not careful and attentive. So, cool. Okay, next we've got Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. This is the ritual spell that you will use a fair bit, but not actually probably as much as Saphira to do your ritual summoning. Anyway, it has to use light monsters from your hand or field, so you gotta be a little careful with that. You can't use something like Effect Veiler or your Bestial Magnamut or something in a pinch. You gotta only use lights. Just a thing to keep in mind. But yeah, it just does a ritual summon, that's really it. However, if a light ritual monster you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, step in the damage step, you can banish this card from your graveyard and then summon another Ceravis, Saphira, or Skull Guardian from hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So this is great because if your opponent, like let's say, you end your turn and like you've got, these guys up on the field, right? You had to maybe normal summon her or whatever. And your opponent uses Lightning Storm on you. Then these get destroyed. You'd actually, what I'll often do is I won't negate it with Skull Guardian because I'll think like, oh, Lightning Storm is, Skull Guardian bait. I'll just let them die. And then, because Prayers is in my grave, I'll banish it. It'll summon a second Skull Guardian from my deck. And then Lo will activate and just summon herself back and then place another spell trap on the field. And I've still got an Omni Negate there. So that's pretty cool. Just beware, this can be hit with Ash Blossom, so that's not really like a foolproof thing, but it helps a lot. It's good, a good insurance policy, so that's why it's so good that Saphira sends it from the deck. When she does, yeah, that's it. Okay, so yeah, Prayers is fun. We've also got Pre-Preparation of Rites, it's just a little consistency thing. Grab a ritual monster and the ritual spell that mentions it. Called by the Grave, stop a hand trap or two. And then finally, to the trap cards, we've got Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. This card is pretty strong. Shuffle a light ritual monster, warrior or dragon, or a ritual spell from your hand or grave into the deck, and then add to your hand or special summon a Voiceless Voice monster from your deck. So you can use this to actually, in a pinch, get to another copy of Lo during the turn, or you can even use it the way that I typically do, is I'll use it to summon out Ceravis, and then like bounce him when they use something else, and I can like summon, So yeah, basically this can be really useful for that, or it can just get you a card for next turn, like getting a Saphira to your hand to use on your upcoming turn. The second, and sometimes more powerful effect, is you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of light ritual monsters that you have and destroy both this and as many of those cards as possible. So this can pop at least one card. It's really useful for stopping field spells like Malice and Underground, or just any of those field spells that like get something on activation. And as long as you've got something like Blessing of the Voiceless Voice face up, you can just get it back next turn and kind of turn it into a loop. Again, I say that the more like you let these little continuous cards resolve, the more this deck just will grind you out of house and home. So yeah. Last few trap cards are your typical Infinite Impermanences. Fun. And the newest edition, Dominus Purge, which acts as sort of an Ash Blossom type card, but will lock you out of fire, dark, and water monsters for the rest of the duel if you activate it from your hand. So you gotta be careful if you do open with like Ash and Purge, or Magnumit and Purge. You'll wanna try to use Magnumit or Ash first and then use Purge. This is assuming your opponent's not going first, So yeah, fun. Okay, that's pretty much it for the main deck. I'll just zip through the extra deck and the side deck, and I guess we'll, have you on your merry way. Card of the Arclight, when it's sent, searches for ritual spells or ritual monsters. It's great. You can send it with Maximus. You can send it with Diviner. Fun. Another synchro that I use is Wind Pegasus at Ignister. There's that other synchro that can like bounce a card or something when it's sent from the extra deck to the grave, or when it's sent to the grave. But I couldn't find it, so I just use Wind Pegasus. This is actually really fun. It catches a lot of people off guard. They forget it's in the graveyard. They get rid of your cards. Use Wind Pegasus, shuffle one of their things back in the deck. Kind of rude. Chaos Angel can be made, like I said, with Trias Hierarchia and Lo. Also, it can be made with Dogmatika Maximus and Diviner of the Herald, although that one comes up a little bit less often. But yeah, Chaos Angel is really strong. It banishes something, and it's kind of immune to monster effects, so it's big. I use Odd Eye's Wing Dragon as my monster of choice for Odd Eye's Pendulum Graph, but you could also use Odd Eye's Meteor Burst Dragon, which is a little bit more useful against something like Tenpai, but it's kind of up to you. Just do what you want. I have a couple of fusions, Garura and Elder Entity Intis, mostly just for sending with Maximus and the Dear Servant and all. You could also use Super Poly in this deck. I sometimes see people using that, but I do not care that much for it. I just don't think this deck has like the discard fodder it really needs to power that. So yeah. Superstar Slayer Typhon. This deck doesn't go in the extra deck a lot, but sometimes this can come in handy. Also, Miralogic Aggregator. This is really useful when you side in Ultimate Slayer against a Ryzeal deck. You can negate something and then also get rid of one of their cards. It's a nasty combo. Then some links. Relinquish Anima that you can make with low. Suck up a monster if they're careless and put it in a zone that he can point to. Salamander, Almirage, and Secure Gardna, just things that you can turn low or Diviner into. And this will line will get you Almirage in the graveyard so that you could then maybe banish it to summon Dogmatika Maximus and take another shot at trying to play this damn game. Dynamondo, so it takes 2 monsters, including a ritual monster. There's a cool little thing that you can do that you've probably seen where like you can, it can shuffle stuff back into the deck that's in the field, but also you can use it to summon back a Skull Guardian in your opponent's draw phase, and then low will come back and it can like get you an extra of your face-up spells and traps. It's a little risky though, because this could get hit by something like Called by the Grave and just be useless, or it could give them a chance to use Called by the Grave or potentially sometimes a bestial monster on your Skull Guardian, and then you won't be able to summon it, and then you're sad, and it's the whole thing. So it's a risky card, but it's still pretty useful. Line of the Light Charmer, SP Little Knight, Underworld Goddess. That's the extra deck. And then for my side deck, which this is obviously just, some stuff I put together, make it for whatever your locals or something is. Droll and Lockbird. A lot of decks don't like this card. It can kind of end a lot of turns. Artifact Lancia, this is great for dealing with the Malice deck. So, there are a few other decks that it's also pretty good against. Ultimate Slayer, like I said, this is really good against Ryzeal, but also it can be useful against mini decks. I've got some Links, some Fusions, some Synchros, and some Xyz, so you can get rid of a lot of troublesome cards and they can't respond to it. Fun. Dark Ruler No More, kind of a little sleeper pick. Depending on the matchup, this is okay. A lot of decks just kind of shit out monsters, and Dark Ruler can kind of just turn the stuff off, let you play. Evenly, if you're playing against back row decks, I think this is a pretty strong card. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is the Voiceless Voice deck. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, maybe learned a thing or two. Like I said, it's just a plain ass Voiceless Voice deck. There's not that much to write home about with this, but I still suggest people play it if you like control and you don't mind using ritual decks. I ultimately think that this deck will never really be amazing, even if it did get new support, because it's, at the end of the day, rituals are playing with 2-card combos in a game where it's kind of full of 1-card combos. But that doesn't mean you can't play it, because I do, and I like it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Pass turn.